Music is...
Hi everyone, welcome back to the Wonder of Anime podcast. I'm your host, Lisa, and I am a multimedia anime content creator, and my work spans across my blog, my YouTube channel, and of course, this podcast. On this podcast, I interview your favorite anime content creators, voice actors, and other notable figures from the anime industry. Welcome back, everyone who has been waiting for me to come back from hiatus. I too have been patiently waiting to come back from hiatus. I want to give a big thank you to everyone who was super supportive when I announced that I was going on hiatus. As you know, I do a lot of other different things, both content-wise and personal-wise, and I just decided it was best to step back from the podcast until I could get everything together, make sure I was having consistent episodes, and just give this podcast the love and attention it deserves, because this podcast is definitely one of my favorite parts of all of the content that I create, and it definitely needs to be showered in my attention as it deserves. I do want to give a special shout out before I start the show to Rob, aka Dad Needs to Talk, on Twitter. He is a fellow anime content creator, and the reason I'm giving him a shout out is because while my podcast was on hiatus, he actually binged almost all the episodes. He binged all the episodes relating to anime. As you guys know, this was not an anime podcast until last year. And he tweeted about them, and he listened to every single episode. He had feedback for every episode. And I believe that him just sharing the show and talking about the show just put it on to a lot of more listeners than I had before. So Rob, thank you so much. I obviously love the work that you do, and I'm so thankful that you chose to binge my podcast and to share it the way that you did. Coming back from this hiatus, I wanted to come out with a bang, and I am so excited for the guest that I have this week. Now, I met this guest, as I do a lot of my guests, on Twitter, and as y'all know, when I start talking to somebody, it seems like we've been best friends forever. And I'm someone who, if you know me personally, that's just in my personality. I try to make sure that I get people on the podcast that I vibe with, that it seems natural, because as somebody who listens to a lot of podcasts, as someone who's done a lot of interviews, you can tell when you just don't vibe with your guests. And I believe that the power of my storytelling and one of my strengths in my interviews is that I really build a rapport with who I'm talking to, and that just makes it so much better. So this episode, I am so excited to introduce my guest, Key. Key is a full-time STEM professional in the field of artificial intelligence and an engineering and technology Ph.D. student. On the side, she serves as marketing director for DreamCon and communication specialist for a fine arts organization. In this episode, me and her just get into it. We start off immediately going off the rails in the best way possible. And as y'all know, things in my show don't happen by accident. Every single topic that we talk about just keeps circling in and out of our entire conversation and just adds so much to the larger picture. In listening back to this episode to edit it, I was just literally getting chills, because Key is someone who is such a beautiful person inside and out. And one of her messages that you can see in the content that she creates and how she operates online is that she shows up as her full self in every single thing that she do, whether she's in the classroom, whether it's when she was teaching, whether now as she is a PhD student, whether it is in her professional role, whether it's as marketing director for DreamCon, on her TikToks, she shows up as her full self every single time. And that to me is someone who strives to do that, as someone who's been leaning towards that in every aspect of my life. It is just so amazing and so admirable. And the work that Key does, especially focusing on Black women and STEM, is just amazing. And I really chose this to be the first episode of the podcast because I just couldn't sit on these messages anymore, and I wanted everyone to enjoy them just as much as I did. And get this word, because Key goes in on so many things that I think every single person who listens to this is going to walk away with something that they're going to hold on to. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode as much as I enjoyed having the conversation and listening to the conversation when I was listening to it back. If you enjoy it, please be sure to share it on social media using the hashtag TWOApod, as well as the hashtag PODIN. That last hashtag just lets people of color know that you're listening to a podcast by a person of color. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoy this episode. I'm so excited to have you here. And I always start off trying to remember how I like met my guests, how we came in contact. And I have no idea how we follow each other. One day you just appeared in my life and now we talk like every day on social media. Maybe it was the Clubhouse train. Like when people
had to have been
each other.
Clubhouse. It had to have been the Clubhouse. I think that's where I followed most of the people from. So it had to have been. But I had seen you before around like social media. But at the time, let me tell you how I am. Like I have to observe people and see if they're like in drama on the timeline all the time. Yes. Like I have time for that. So I have to observe before I'm like, okay, I'm kind of feeling their vibe. So I had seen you around a bit and I was like, oh, she's really about her business. Like she seems like a sweetheart. So then when we were in the Clubhouse at the same time, one of those times, I was like, okay, I can start following her. And I followed a few others. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it was that Clubhouse.
You know what? It's so funny that you say that because I'm very similar because especially like the drama that kind of was going on this year, very valid stuff that was occurring. But it was like, I feel like it was like 2 or 3 weeks or maybe that entire month where like everybody was being called out. People was like, you know what? Today's the day we're going to drag this creator. And I'm just like, please, like I don't. And especially like being a content creator, I don't like, I feel like obviously like you're your own person, but it's so the minute somebody associates you with someone, like even if it was like you have no idea, maybe you just interviewed them for something. Like I saw creators being dragged about that one situation and it was like they were doing like a work thing. Yes. Like they not gonna know the ins and outs. So I'm like the same way where I'm so like let me just peep a little bit because I feel like once you endorse somebody, it don't matter if it was 10 years ago. It's like, oh, you were friends with a murderer, and you're like, I didn't know. I had no idea.
That's exactly how it is.
And it's crazy because I feel like some criticism is like valid, but I also think it's like two things can be true at once. Like you don't know somebody's day in and out. You don't know what they're capable of outside of your friendship with them.
But you know what, on Twitter, like it's the land of black and white. There's no gray areas. No one explores nuances. And people be having like insult and beef with people and static loaded. And then when it's a good time, they let it out. So sometimes people just get caught up in a crossfire. And it's like, oh, it was a little wild. And it was like that for a couple of weeks.
You bring up such a great point where it's like, that was something that like some of the bigger people were calling out too, where it was like, it seems like some of y'all just ready to tear these people down. Like y'all were just waiting on the sidelines for an opportunity to like, I remember there was a lot of dialogue, like where people were kind of turning it into, this is our time for smaller creators to come up because everybody's crashing. And it was
I didn't like that.
Whoa, this is a real serious issue. Nobody should be worried about who's coming up. It's so crazy because it's like, I love social media, but then it is like what you said, there's such a black and white and you can't have these nuanced conversations because they just go over people's heads and it's like the mob, we gotta attack you. But getting started, so I always ask my guests, who are you? What do you do? What is a little bit about your content or what your drive is with what you do online?
So it's like my little spiel. It's like in all my videos now. But I'm Key with an I, not an E, also known as PinKIY Sensei across basically all social media platforms. And for my full-time job, I work in the STEM disciplines, specifically artificial intelligence, where it intersects with education. And then I'm also a full-time Ph.D. program in a STEM program, specifically engineering and technology. And so I'm only in my first semester, but I mean, we are deep diving in. I mean, we've done lit reviews, critical analysis, TED Talks, all of that. And my research so far has been focused on the representation of women in STEM in media, and then specifically media forms like anime, manga, comic books, and video games. I don't know how many people are familiar with this, but there are only like 20% of women across all STEM disciplines. 20%. And when you start looking at women of color, that number significantly decreases. And there's a lot of research out there listing reasons why this is, but one that I'm really passionate about is representation. Like, you can't be what you can't see. And I know for me personally, I don't want to be in spaces where I don't see people who look like me. I'm very hesitant to enter those spaces. And I don't believe that I have a place there if I don't see people who look like me there. And so I think it's really important that we highlight the representation of women in STEM so that we can get more girls interested in it.
That literally gave me chills because obviously I'm familiar with your content. So I'm familiar with like your mission and stuff, but that specifically what you said, like, if we're not seen, like you can't be what you can't see, like that is something that is so like I feel like people don't take that, like they take it for granted and they don't realize like it can be the smallest thing, but if you don't see somebody who looks like you doing it, you feel like you can't do it. And one of the things that I personally love about your content is that you're somebody who obviously you're in this PhD program. Clearly you're at a higher level of education, but that never comes across in your content or what you do on social media. Cause I feel like a lot of the times there's this disconnect between like higher academia and like people who maybe didn't go to college or maybe they just have a bachelor's. And you see this a lot, kind of what we were talking about with those Twitter dialogues where things are so black and white. So people have like, oh, well, academia Twitter, and people feel like they can't infiltrate those conversations. So one of my favorite things about you is that you have these, you're doing this PhD program, but you're breaking it down in ways that anybody can approach you to talk about. Is that something that is, on purpose, or that's just always how you've been in your life?
It's absolutely intentional. I'm not sure if I've always been that way. I know that I intentionally made that decision when I was in undergrad. In undergrad, I was dead set on going to law school. But I was majoring in fashion. I wanted to be an attorney in the field of fashion. And I ended up just scraping the entire fashion major and creating my own major. And so I was taking classes under the Department of Liberal Studies. So like race, class, culture, women's studies. I was taking business classes. I was taking law classes. I was taking fashion, marketing, PR. And I put that all together. And I think when I was creating that curriculum and presenting it to the dean of the department, I think it was in that moment where I realized like, yo, I can do both. Like, I don't have to be like left-brained or right-brained. I don't have to be like academic or like law side and like set aside my creativity. Like, I can marry both. And in that moment, I've tried to carry that with me throughout my life. So even when I interview for jobs, like my resume has pink on it and it has like my Hogwarts house and like my Myers-Briggs personality. And I'm super intentional about that because if that scares people off or they feel like, that's not professional enough, then I'm not the person for you. I'm always going to show up as my full authentic self. And I find that in higher education and academia, people tend to be very like pretentious and off-putting. And I'm a first generation college student. And so I had to figure out everything by myself, for myself. And it was hard. And I didn't have like a mentor to guide me through the process. Or like I was on Reddit. Like I was like deep in like forums online trying to figure out like, okay, what do I need? How do I go about this? And I just know that there are other girls specifically, like I'm really passionate about women. There are other girls who are like looking for someone to like guide them who isn't off-putting and who doesn't feel like they're better than them, who doesn't feel like they're smarter than them. Like, no, I'm you. Like, I'm gonna help you. Come on, let's go.
That is just chef's kiss. And I specifically relate to that because I am somewhere too where I'm like, you just gonna get all of me because I felt like we are trained, especially I'm similar, like first generation college student. I'm come from parents of immigrants. So it's kind of like, you got to put your face forward and code switching and and it's like, listen, I'm loud, I'm abrasive. Some people think I'm too much, but that's me. And I feel like I'm not like on my resume, I put my podcast and I put, the stuff that I do because you have to show all those facets. And the one thing that I love that you mentioned, because it was a point that I wanted to bring up is pink. And it's like, obviously, like I'm like I love pink and all that stuff too, but marrying, and for anybody who's seen your TikToks, it's like you come on screen, hair done, makeup done, these colorful eyebrows and pink, and all your aesthetic is very girly, and it's people immediately don't associate that with STEM, and that is something that, and I get like people, it's like, oh, I feel like girly isn't like really controversial, but people don't take that seriously. Like, it's like you can't
Yes.
be both girly and serious. And it's like, I can love pink as a woman, and that still doesn't take away from that. And then with you, like you put all this like on that. And I guess that's intentional too. Do you feel like moving forward, like you're gonna push more into that femininity into your content? Like, how was that decision making? Is that still part of that, showing up as your full self?
Yeah, I'm absolutely a girly girl. It's so funny because one of my former employees, she asked me, she's like, Key, have you always been like this? Like, and so I had to think, and I was like, I'm not sure. I feel like, yeah, but maybe I don't know. Let me text my mom. I text my mom like, Mommy, like, have I always been this way? Like, have I always been a girly girl? And she's like, not. She calls me Nana Sita. She's like, Nana Sita, you've always loved pretty things, like always. It's always been you. So, but I do find that in the STEM field specifically, like a lot of women will step out of that to be taken seriously, and I just feel like my intellect is there. It is what it is. Like, we're all in the same PhD programs together. We're all working at the same companies together. Like, clearly there's something that I have in my arsenal that is on the same level as you. So for you to like just look at me appearance wise and just think, oh, like I'm less than, or like, how did I get here? It's a fluke. Like, that's on you. I can no longer take ownership and accountability for how you feel about me.
Right. And another thing too, that I feel like, as Black people and people of color, it's always like these added layers, because it's like Black women and women of color, like especially Black women, you're not afforded femininity at all. Like, there's all these negative stereotypes, like very masculine and stuff like that. So then if it is like you embracing that, then it's like, oh, that's a white girl thing. You know what I mean? And it's like, to have
Yep.
that positive representation, like you're doing so much for people who don't associate that, or feel like, I'm not going to be, it's like that Legally Blonde moment. Like, I'm not going to be taken seriously because I'm embracing all of these parts of myself. And it's very shameful, because I feel like it's set against women, but then white women can get away with it. Whereas Black and women of
Yep.
color, it's like, you can't.
And you know what's so funny? And like, we're in the same age group, we're from the same generation, so we're seeing the progress. But like the generation before, Generation X, they're still very much into respectability politics. So even when I was applying for PhD programs and I was meeting with professors and stuff, like, and it would be Black women, but they would tell me like, oh, sis, I'm going to talk to you like you're my little cousin. Like, you got to take away the pink. Or the white men in the department, they're not going to take you seriously. And they're like, one of my mentees, they dyed their hair blue. And I told them like, okay, like, you're fine with doing that if you feel like answering the questions about it every day. Like, that's not something I would do. And I'm just sitting there listening to her like, do you hear yourself? Like, do you hear yourself? Like, that's not how you should be operating at this time. Like, that's just unacceptable to me. But that knowledge is still being passed on. And you have to think like, for our generation, if we have a mentor who's from, someone with those beliefs, we'll continue to pass that on and carry those beliefs with us. And I really had to make the decision. I was like, no, like, I'm not, absolutely not. Like, if you feel that way, this is just not the place for me. But there's a program who's going to accept all of me. And that's just that.
Right. And it's like, you can't feel like you get to a certain point in your life where it's like, you can't continue to be the one to shape shift into opportunities. Like, it's like,
Yep.
you gonna take all of this or you not? And it's something so funny, because you think of that, like, you think of something like your color preference or how you do your makeup and stuff, and you would never in your wildest dreams, like an alien looking on Earth would be like, how does that matter so much? And literally it is those things where it's like, it reminds me of that first season of Insecure where Molly had to like talk to the other Black girl in the office. It's like, you need to tone it down. And it's like,
Yes.
why?
Yes.
But people don't see that in real life. And I think that's the power of TikTok and TikToks like yourself, where if you show that, then somebody else who may like anime or is interested in STEM can be like, I can like anime and STEM and pink and marry that all together.
Yes.
And starting with anime, because obviously we love anime. I would love to talk about how you got into anime, because I think everybody's journey, especially like across different generations, it's so different. So do you remember the first anime you watched, or like how you started watching anime?
Yeah, this is so funny because I was talking to my mom about this a couple months ago. And I was asking her, I was like, Mommy, I cannot remember. Was it Sailor Moon or was it My Neighbor Totoro? And she's like, it was Sailor Moon. But I remember having My Neighbor Totoro on VHS. Like, I remember that being like my first anime movie. But it was Sailor Moon. My mom will verify that. And Sailor Moon holds a very special place in my heart because I just feel like that was like the mother of like all the baddies, okay? Like I feel like we wouldn't have Winx Club, we wouldn't have Powerpuff Girls, we wouldn't have Totally Spies. Like Sailor Moon absolutely set the precedence for seeing these women who are feminine, but like can kick some butt and who are like smart and sometimes not even the best of the best. Like when I think about Sailor Moon, she was a crybaby, she was lazy, she was boy crazy. Half the time she didn't even want to be a Sailor Guardian, but like she was kind of like the underdog, honestly. But like she was still a leader, and they were able to see like what she could do. And I mean, to this day, it's still like she could be Goku. No one can argue with that.
Nobody. And I love what you said about Sailor Moon, because I'm friends with Victoria from the Sailor Moon fan club podcast. And on her podcast, I was like, I'm just gonna have to do. I spent like a 10-minute ranting about Sailor Moon and Deku from My Hero Academia, and them being the underdogs and the cry. I feel like I'm gonna go get my master's, and it's gonna be about that. But I love what you pointed out about it not being the best of the best at all times, because that's something too, with especially like in media and then in anime as well, where it's like, and mostly it's like fans, not specifically the media itself, where it's like women have to be absolutely perfect, the strongest of the strongest to ever be considered anything at all. And a lot of people count Sailor Moon out because she's a crybaby. But then you have Aaron Yeager, who I love Aaron, but you know, he like cries a lot and it's still like, he's still a badass and stuff like that. And of course there's people who like dispute that, but women aren't given that much leeway or grace as like men are. And then men, them being like, well, him tapping into emotions, that's why he powered up. But it's like, she did the same thing. Why is it not okay for her to do that?
But you know what, that goes back into like being feminine, because like I think about JJK and Maki, and the men love Maki. But I mean, we can clearly see Maki is like a less overtly feminine character. And that's not to take away anything from her, because she gets it done. Like, you know, no spoilers. I'm caught up on the manga. Like she is that girl. But I find that men are more accepting of her because of how she's portrayed. And they are not accepting of someone like Sailor Moon at all.
And it's like, again, the patriarchy. And this is why I'm like, I can't be having this conversation with everybody, because I'm like, this is why the patriarchy setting us back. And people are like, girl, calm down. We talk about anime, but it all like ties in. And I feel like those are all facets of conversation that are important to have. So you started with Sailor Moon. What do you feel like is that anime that like made you like a weave, or you just like from this anime on, you were always watching anime, or maybe you got you into manga and always, because I feel like there's a point where we all like casually watch stuff and then we're like, oh no, this is my life now. I'm this person.
So my mom watches anime. Like I'll be, you know, like if my boyfriend and I are gonna go on a date tonight or something, and like I'm doing my makeup, like I'll FaceTime her, I'll video call her, and you know, she's watching anime. She loves K-dramas. She loves BTS. Like when I say loves BTS, she's obsessed with BTS. For her birthday in September, we got her like a BTS blanket and cups and stuff, because she'll just be laid up on the couch watching her boys. Okay. So
I love
my
that.
mom is that way. And so as a result, like myself and like my brothers, like we've always been that way. So my older brother, Armand, he's actually going to come from, you know, Pennsylvania to go to Anime NYC with us. My little brother, Victor, he's in Florida, so he's not going to make it, but he's going to, I forgot what they're calling it, but it's this weekend. It's happening in like South Florida. He's going to some anime convention. So we've just always really been like this. Once that entry point happened with Sailor Moon, it was on and popping from there for me. But I think like being a dedicated watcher for real, or being like cognizant of the media I was taking in, probably like around the age of like 11 or 12. like where I really found myself like, oh, let me like line up in front of the TV. The shows are about to come on. Like Cowboy Bebop is about to be on. Like, let me stay up a little later and sneak and watch it. But yeah, it's always been a thing for myself because of my family.
That's my family goals. Like I'm gonna be that parent that's like, sit down, young child. Let's watch this anime together and just be like that. Because I just think it's so, especially like with your parents, I love the trend now too, where people are putting their parents onto anime that they've never watched the anime before. And I love that there's so many like good animes that people can like get into it now. Just be like, watch Attack on Titan, this is crazy, even if you've never watched anime. But one thing, like I said, with your content with STEM, first of all, what kind of led you made your undergrad, I think it's like is it called interdisciplinary?
Yeah.
That word.
Disciplinary. Yeah.
Interdisciplinary degree. So then what led you to concentrate specifically in STEM after that?
Oh, it's been such a journey. So I'll rewind a bit. I was going, like I said, I knew I was going to law school in the field of fashion. But there was always like this diversity, equity, and inclusiveness lens I was coming from, because I knew, again, in the fashion industry, people who look like me, like they'll take our ideas, but then they'll take credit for it. Or they'll wear their hair, their nails, whatever, the same exact way we do, but they're not treated the way that we are. And so even when I was going into law school for fashion, I was like, it was always this DEI lens. And my youngest brother, his name is Trayvon, I call him Eskimos, he had gotten into some trouble with the school system. And he always hated school. He was always targeted as like a young Black boy. And he was one of the students who was like an anti-model student. Like from kindergarten, he just never liked school. For me, even as a Black woman, I was able to navigate the school system easily because I was a model student. Like I minded my business. I was always in AP honors courses, talented and gifted, that sort of thing. So I was fine with school. My little brother hated school. And I started, because I'm 10 years older than him, I started to put together like he experiences a very different school system than I do as a young Black male who isn't a model student. So anyways, he got into some trouble with the school system and they were threatening to kick him out and everything like that, lock him away, blah, 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 blah. And when it came time for him to appear before the judge was like, basically like, yo, you have the wrong kid. Like, sure, he made a mistake, but like he comes from a 2-parent household. He comes from an upper middle class, home. Like he has an older sister in college, a younger sister entering college. Like you guys basically have the wrong kid. So while his race had gotten him into this predicament, his socioeconomic status had gotten him out. And that really effed me up, Lisa. Like I was happy that things didn't turn out as bad as they could have for him. But I was just like, dang, what about the kids who have zip code, class, race, everything against them? Like that would have been a totally different scenario if we lived in a different zip code. That would have been a totally different scenario if, it was just a single mother in a courtroom. And that really effed me up, where I decided I wanted to do something different. And so I was trying to figure out what I was doing, some soul searching. And what I ended up doing after I graduated was I ended up entering the classroom. And I was like, okay, instead of going to law school for fashion, I'm going to go for education policy. So I started teaching 6th grade English language arts, absolutely loved it. But my goal in the end was to get into education policy. So I was doing my master's degree in education at the time. And all of my electives were like education policy, special education law. Like all my electives were based around policy and law. Lisa, I hated policy. Absolutely hated it. I hated everything that was going on with politics in the world. This is the time where like Trump was elected. I had a student whose parents were deported from my classroom. Like it was very real. And I was like at that time, I think I made a connection where I'm like, the politics, like it's fake news. Like they get into these positions, but they almost like kind of get disconnected from what the general population is going through. And I was like, I absolutely cannot. And so I was working a part-time job in teacher preparation. And so like I was training teachers essentially, but I was doing a lot of different things. Like I would do HR work, I would do operations, logistics, like just a bunch of different things. I realized like the world of education is more than just being like a teacher or administrator or like a curriculum developer. Like those were the only things I knew of in education, but there are so many jobs in education. So from there, from the classroom, I taught 3rd grade for a period of time. And then I went into teacher preparation full time. And then from there, I got into my current role where I help teachers now integrate artificial intelligence into the classroom. And so that was like my entry. I know that was so long, but like I have such an untraditional background, a non-traditional background. That's how I got into STEM specifically. And it should be noted that when I was teaching in Title I schools. So like 100% of my students were getting free lunch, free breakfast, like bottom of the district where like state was coming in, school turnaround, all of that. And but these were schools that were supposedly like STEM academies. And that pissed me clean off because my students did not have access to any of the funds that like their white counterpart schools had. And so like, I was like, when I say I was like in the gutter trying to get it out from like the mud for my students, because like the district was not providing that for them. And I'm like, how are we supposed to be an academy of technology and science or a math and science academy, and my students don't have any access to even basic coursework, let alone extracurricular activities, funding? Like, it was absolutely nuts. And so when I got into this role, I currently work at a residential high school. It's like a top high school in the nation. The brightest of the brightest students go there. It's only junior. They have to apply to get accepted. And like, even like the state just passed some budget where any student who graduates from this high school, they automatically get acceptance into any North Carolina college. Like, this school, like, this is the school. But for me, in my role, I try to take our classes, our curriculum, and push it out to students nationwide, students who look like me, students who are like the babies that I taught. And so that was like my entryway into STEM. That was so long-winded.
No, I love stories like that because I feel like, again, it's that representation. There's somebody right now getting an education. I just had something on my Twitter and somebody was like, I'm finishing up this education degree and I don't even want it anymore. But they're almost done. And it's like I think it's like what you said, you only see certain options. So you think, oh, well, I got to be a teacher. I got to be this, or, a business degree or whatever degree. And you don't see that there's these other motions, other parts and motions in there. And being from somebody who like, I am somebody who my city was the New York Times poorest city in America in 2011. And I went to the high school that, low funds and all that stuff. All that stuff is very relatable. And I think of last year when COVID happened and people had to go digital and the school district is like scrambling to get technology for these kids. And it's like, a family that has multiple kids in the school district, they can only get one laptop. And it's like, those are things that I feel like is that entryway. And again, like tying that into everything, I think about last year, a teacher reached out to me to do like an anime club, like a digital anime club. And then I'm thinking like some of these kids, like when it's because it was on Zoom, and like some of these kids, their internet access isn't the best. They're, maybe using a parent's phone or something like that. And it's like little things like that where I had a role previously where I was a community educator for sexual assault, domestic violence, trauma shelter, but we would go into schools. So I would be in the rich, like white suburban school and then go to my school district where I went. And I was like, every class, the kids are in the white school district pulling out the school provided Chromebooks, everything, top of the line. And you see them have the integrated smart boards and that type of stuff. Yep. And then you go to the poorest school district and they don't have access to that. They're using technology that's 10, 15 years behind. And it's like all of those play a key in people. And I think it's so that, and that's again, one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you about this perspective with STEM is so important. And the reason that I asked for how you got into that, because then now you're doing this content where you tie in STEM and anime and all, manga and all that other type of media, but that's what we consume as children. So it like, people don't realize those ties. Yes. So when you decided to pursue your PhD, what led you to add in your interest of anime, manga, comic books into what you're doing with your PhD?
Well, it's exactly like you just said, like you hit it right there. It's the fact that as a child, that's where I saw women in STEM represented. Like, I remember Bulma, and it's so crazy because I remember those messages being fed to me watching anime. Like, I'm seeing Bulma and like, she's absolutely like, she's a genius, right? And I'm watching these women in anime who are represented in these ways, or, comic books and that sort of thing. And at some point, the messaging for me kind of switched gears where I'm like, well, girls don't really do that. it wasn't fostered in me. Like when I was in middle school and even high school, to be honest, it was not fostered in me whatsoever, even though I had this interest in it in elementary school. And there's research out there. I told you, like there's age period from like 10 to 14, 15, where girls lose interest in STEM. And I think this is a lot of the time, around the time where we start to make connections about gender stereotypes and what's for girls versus what's for boys, which really sucks, but that's the reality of it. And when you get back on track, maybe 16, 17, when you're like, well, I don't care, like I have an interest, it's too late. You have to be, for you to like major in STEM or something like that in college, it really starts at middle school. And I'll tell you why. As a sixth grade teacher, we made the decisions for what courses our students were eligible for in seventh grade. And so seventh grade is when you start taking your higher up math courses. And so you either basically are in a general education math course or like an honors kind of math course. Sixth grade, we make that decision, right? They're 11, 12 years old, we make that decision. So at seventh grade, if you're already in that gen ed, like you are fighting for your life if you're going to try to get on track for eighth grade. Because you got to think by eighth grade, the teachers are making decisions for your high school coursework. And you know that to get into certain majors for in the STEM disciplines in college, you have to have certain prerequisites in high school. And so that's high school, but you can't take those courses in high school unless you've been set on the track in middle school. So when the girls lose interest, like at age 10, as they're going from fifth grade to sixth grade, they're going from elementary school to middle school, like we lost them. And then, like I said, they are fighting for their lives if they have an interest again. And so I knew I wanted to be in the field of fashion since the age of 10 years old, right? I lost interest in STEM, wanted to be in the field of, and in high school, but I was still in like all AP courses and everything. So I took this summer camp called Science Frontiers Academy, and we had to do this big project about basically what we wanted to do in STEM. And I'm like, I don't want to be in STEM. I want to be in fashion. Like, why am I here? But I started to do some digging and I got into textile science, which is a major aspect in fashion. And that was a pivotal moment in my life because I was like, yo, like fashion, like STEM, like there's a place for that together. And I started to make the connections where STEM lived in other places, which is what stuck with me because I was able to, create my own major in college and realize things aren't as isolated as they seem. Things don't live in silos. But yeah, like I just remember being young and seeing these women in STEM, like in X-Men and Dragon Ball Z and things like that. And at some point I lost that. But I don't want girls to lose that. Like I want them to see those women, but like make the connections. Like I want to intentionally make the connection for them. Because like when I was younger, like I saw them, yes, but I don't think it really stuck with me like, oh, like she's an inventor, she's an engineer. Like that's the word for it. Wilma's an engineer, right? I didn't make that connection when I was younger. And I want to intentionally make those connections so girls are already hearing these different roles that they can be.
Listen, I literally have just chills this whole conversation because it just, what you said too about like not having the language, like that is such an important factor because if you don't know what to call something, you don't know how you can do it. And yep. I think one of your TikToks is, I'm obsessed with your TikTok. The one that like really had me just thinking differently was the one that you did on Winry from Full Metal Alchemist, because I am somebody who got into Full Metal Alchemist 2 years ago. So I was late in the game, it's over 10 years, Brotherhood's over 10 years old at this point. And I absolutely love Winry. She was one of my, obviously, like the ship, everything, love them. And I never put together what she was like, I just thought she was such a badass. And I'm someone, I feel like I'm pretty educated on certain things. And I would have never made that connection. And then it kind of got me thinking about other characters, some that you've covered in your series and, some that you haven't probably covered yet, but they're on your list. So I'm just like, it's crazy how when somebody then gives you that language, it's like the red car phenomenon where when you think about a red car, you get a red car, all of a sudden, all you see are red cars. And it's like, now that you put that thought into my head, now I'm thinking about Sailor Mercury and how she was always techie and she was always fun. And never would have thought that if you didn't introduce me to that. And I think about the recent one that you did, which I loved because I just rewatched Demon Slayer, which was Shinobu. And I love her character. And this, because I just rewatched it like a month ago, because I was like, it's been too long. And spoilers for anybody who hasn't watched it. But the part that specifically stood out to me is when you're talking about how she fights. And I remember specifically that part in the anime sticking out to me because I guess the first time I watched it, I like glazed over it, that she's not somebody that kills people with her sword, but she engineered her own medicine and stuff. And it's like, then when I saw that TikTok, I started thinking about the other demon who has been, that she's the one that Tanjiro's working with, like to get the demon blood. I forgot her name. And I'm like, this is why those series matter and why I wanted to have you on my podcast, because you gave me that language and you gave me that view now. So now I'm looking back in my archives or reading things and accessing them differently. And now I have an entryway that maybe I can introduce somebody else to.
Oh, I love that. That's literally my goal. And it's so funny because like I call my boyfriend Boss Man, and he'll be like, I have an Excel sheet of the women I want to feature. And he's like, oh, do you have this person? You have this person. And I remember when I was telling him Shinobu, and he's not caught up on, do you read the manga? Have you read it?
Mm-mm.
Okay. So no, you're kids, you like to watch. You don't like to read before you watch. Okay. So I have to read before I watch.
I can't.
And
I be getting too invested.
I get so anxious when I don't know what's going to happen. Let me tell you how we're catching up on season 4, the first part of Attack on Titan, because we fell behind. That released when we had way too much going on. Our anime Sunday night watching party, I mean, we had like 5 animes we were watching. So we were like, we'll just binge Attack on Titan. So we're currently trying to wrap that up now before part 2 comes out. And okay, I don't want to do any spoilers, but there's a death of a character that I love. And I did not know she was going to die. And when I say I caught a 2.5 last night, like I was depressed. I was like, wow, we got to stop. I cannot watch anymore. Like, Boss was like, babe, what's wrong? Like, do I need to stop? And I'm like, yeah, you need to stop it. And he knew. I was like, you didn't warn me. Because I'm the person, like, I have to wiki a full movie before I watch it. I have to read the full manga. I have to read a book before I watch the show. Like, and so I was really caught off guard. But anyways, I say that to say for Demon Slayer, Shinobu, I mean, she absolutely blows me away with her chemistry, essentially, and like her medical knowledge. I mean, what she does, absolutely pivotal. And if it didn't happen, like no one would be here in the series. So I really had to give my hats off to her. Like, but I want people like to realize that. And I was like, it was so hard for me to edit that video because I went on a whole rant about how, like, because people are saying like the women in Demon Slayer, like basically that they're whack, they're weak sauce. And I did not like that. I'm
me
like,
either. Who's whack?
That these women do? Are you kidding me? Have you ever seen any of those TikToks?
No, and if they came on my For You page, I would have an attack because I don't. When you said that in the start of your video, and I was like, "Who's saying this?" Because I can't deal with it.
It was a big thing on TikTok. There was a lot of discourse about that, and I felt personally offended. You would have thought that they were talking about like my daughter or something. Like I felt personally attacked. I was like, "No, they are not talking about the women in Demon Slayer like this. You got to be kidding me."
I do not agree. And I feel like too, it kind of goes with, again, everything I feel like is always a connection with women in media, femininity, where it's like, there's different type of women. And whenever a woman isn't to the expectation or isn't the strongest woman or isn't, what do they call that? Like the perfect woman, like, you know how they have the perfect victim narrative? Like if somebody doesn't fit the perfect women characteristics, then the person didn't write them well. And the one thing that, and I've never seen Naruto, but everybody gets into those.
Really?
No. And I don't have 400 episodes in me plus the other 200. I just can't. But I always
see episodes growing up.
That what?
Did you ever see episodes growing up?
Nothing. Like I've seen like 2-3 episodes.
I'm just so surprised.
I went through a heavy manga phase. And then like when I was in like high school, I would always watch like what was available on demand. I didn't have cable, so I didn't have a Cartoon Network. But I always see the discourse around Sakura, that character, and people like hate her and people love her, or people feel like she's written very like bad. And I can't say on that because I haven't read or watched the series, but it always finds interesting that when people are saying that she's bad, I'm like, there's people like that. Like that's not like, I feel like that's real life, that there's women that suck. And it's like, I can't say this character sucks or not.
It is, yeah.
And I think it's, I feel like we do this disservice to like women when we're like, oh, they did a poorly character. It's like, maybe she didn't live up to your expectations or she does things that annoy you. But to me, that's a well-written character, that they're giving you these emotions that you feel like it's not you or you don't see in your life.
I think with her, first of all, I'm not like this huge Naruto stan. I just feel like I don't know how anyone could have avoided it. I feel like you're very lucky to have avoided it. So I'm not judging you for missing it. I was doing a rewatch as an adult, and Lisa, that rewatch has been going on for the past like 3 years. Like I just cannot get through it. I was like, what were we watching? But they're gonna attack me for this. But what I will say about her, I think there is a distinction between women who are intentionally written in that way. Because again, there are women who are like that. There are women who can relate. And when they're written that way unintentionally, just because they fell by the wayside, because like the writer doesn't really know what they're doing with that character or with women. And so I think she falls a bit into the latter, but I don't think like it's as huge of a deal as people make. Like, but you know this about me. I don't care to argue about anime opinions. Like, okay, you love her, you hate her. I don't care. Like, I'm not gonna fall on a cross by it either way. Okay.
When you were tweeting that the other day, I felt so personally like verified because I had my last podcast before I went on hiatus was with Gene from Worst Gen Podcast. And I told him on the episode, I was like, I don't argue with people. I was like, I'm too emotional. I get very hurt in my feels. I forgot what I logged into and I saw some slander and I had to close the app. Like I literally get emotionally unwell. I'm like, I don't have time to argue with people because y'all wrong. And I'm not.
No, literally, that's how I feel like I'm right, you're wrong. And that's just that. Like, I'm so sorry if you don't have the clarity to see that I'm right. But at the end of the day, I am. You're wrong.
It's just like
we can just agree to disagree.
Exactly. And I feel like too, like the one thing that is like I love about like what you like post on Twitter and stuff, it's because lately I've been seeing people that are like coming at the anime community online and they're like, oh, the anime community online doesn't like, it makes me not want to watch anime. And it's like, it's all what you make it and it's all your experience and something that you tweeted about. It's like, I just do it. Like, I just enjoy this and like partake in this and, or don't partake in that. And I'm like, that's the mindset that people need to have. If you're not somebody that's like, cause I'm the same. I'm not going to debate you about anime. Like for me, that's not fun. For me, I want you to come over. Let's have wine. I'm going to cry. Cause I also I did Attack on Titan. I saw the first season years ago and then forgot, it took so long for the other season to come out. I forgot about it. Yep. This January, I was like, I'm a binge everything. When I tell you that I look back at pictures of me in January, I look emotionally unwell because I was like, I literally like, I'm at the bar with my husband. I look at this picture and I had to caption it. Oh, I'm not sad. I'm just thinking about Attack on Titan because I was so depressed. And I'm about to do it all over again because I've been seeing a lot of TikToks where people are like that. Once you see it the first time, even if you haven't read the manga, there's certain plot points that become obvious to you. And spoiler for anybody, and I'll put the spoilers in the show notes, but like the one thing that I saw, and I seen some TikToks about it, is that like there's a point where every time they talk about the Titans who broke the wall, the Colossal Titan and the Armored Titan, that they pan to Berto and Rainer.
Yes.
And I'm like, yes. And I've seen those clips and I'm like, I love Easter eggs like that. So I'm like, that's the type of shit that am I ready emotionally? No. Am I going to do it anyway? Yes. So that, and one thing you said about like, when you like, it's something about, you said like reading the manga first. So I too am very anxious person, but the only reason that it's not that I don't want to, because I'm always accidentally spoiling myself. Because I'd be like, let me Google this. And then bitch, you'd be like, Google would be like, random character died. And you'd be like, what? I didn't get to that episode yet. But for me, it's more so as somebody who, as I can see you like books too. I used to be somebody that would read a book and then I'm like, I can't wait for the movie. And the movie sucked and ruined my entire life.
Yeah.
So I always feel like whatever the medium, if I watch it first, the book or the original source can only exceed my expectations or make me feel grateful that whatever movie anime took whatever direction. But like I own Demon Slayer, I own Attack on Titan, like all the volumes, and I'm literally like, almost once this is done, I can read it.
I'm the same way, specifically with like books and movies. Like I'm definitely a book snob. Even like watching you, which I don't know, it's you was like right here on my shelf. Like I'm like, it's not the same. I'm definitely a book snob. I don't know why, but that doesn't translate into manga and anime for me. Like I'm able to take the manga for what it is and the anime as like something separately for what it is. So like even The Promised Neverland season 2. I mean, that
I
pissed
didn't
the
watch,
community
but I
clean
heard.
off. They were so upset. And I mean, it is definitely different. It is what it is. But I just think from the standpoint, like the reality is it's more popular now, but a lot of people don't read the manga. And so when I look at the anime, I'm wondering like, okay, is this a good entry point for like understanding for someone who's coming in completely blind? And if it is, and if they're able to follow it like easily enough, I'm satisfied as long as they don't do like the characters or the story like too dirty. So I'm able like to separate and differentiate between manga and anime. Not really with books and movies and shows and stuff, but for manga and anime, I can.
You know what I think may play into this is when you read a book, it's different than a manga because manga you see the stuff, so like you're visualizing. In a book, you be making shit clean off, like it's just your whole imagination. Is true.
That's a funny fact.
Like I be reading stuff and then I'll be like watching. I'm like, this was not what I was picturing. I don't know what happened. There's something. You know, Howl's Moving Castle. Howl's Moving Castle is based on a book. So that was interesting because I've seen Howl's Moving Castle, but I love the book too. But then reading the book, it's different. But I agree with how the movie. There were certain points that I wish the movie did. Post obviously, but now like reading the book, I have like a different movie in my head. So I'm like, this is so wild to me. Like, this is what I think is happening. But I just, like I said, that's one of the reasons I feel like I'm drawn to you is like, we have this, like this, I feel like, and I'm drawn to people like this is like, you take stuff for what it is. You don't make it a big deal or like, you just have fun. And something that you tweeted, I was it this weekend. I just love, I feel like I would just be like, but there was something about letting people enjoy things, but also realizing that some things like there's deeper shit in the world. And it's like, that to me just struck a nerve because I think too, with this content creating community specifically, and kind of what we were talking about at the beginning of the episode, it's like you waste so much time and you're going back and forth and this beef and this stuff. And it's like, just, this is supposed to be fun. Why are we making it so complicated?
I just can't get into that. For one, anime is just like, as corny as it sounds, is very special to me. Like I said, that's one of the first spaces where I saw women that like I could relate to. You know, when you're watching something, you're like, oh, I'm that character. Oh, I'm her. I'm her. I felt that more with like anime and manga. And when I was teaching, like I said, I taught Title I schools. Before I would even dig into my content, the first 2 weeks, I would just get to know my students. So we would take little working style quizzes. I took a survey on like how they felt about school, about reading. And by the time my students got to 6th grade, they really hated school. They hated reading. English was their least favorite subject. It was boring. And a lot of them will come to me. The majority of them were on a 4th grade reading level at 6th grade. But I had students who were on a kindergarten reading level, 1st grade reading level, that sort of thing. Like it was bad. And so my mission, like one of my classroom missions was to get my students invested in reading. And so, and my boyfriend will tell you, like, we used to be at Barnes and Noble, like every other week. I would spend hundreds of dollars. And this is my first year teaching. So I'm not making no bank. I'm not popping like that. But any extra money I had, I was going to Barnes and Nobles and buying them books. And the books that would fly off the shelves were often manga, graphic novels. So like there was this graphic novel series called The Amulet. I bought like 2 full sets of that. Every single one of them were gone. Like they would steal the books from the classroom library. I wasn't even mad about it. I'm like, that book now has a home and there's a student who's invested in reading. Every day in my class, we had 30 minutes of silent sustained reading. And I would intentionally like sit on the beanbag chairs, the carpet and stuff with them. They used to fight over, oh, who's going to read the book next? Who's going to read Miss Benson's book next? Like, and I would see like their love for reading grow. And then we had, it was called a strategic gaming club. Girl, it was an anime club. We would play like Pokemon, Dragon Ball Z. And I wasn't even the teacher who would run the club, but I was able to connect with my students because of our mutual love for manga and anime. And so I would just be in a club with them like as a participant. And so it was special to me as a young woman, as a young girl growing up and seeing women who I could relate to in that way. And then it was special for me as an adult being able to form relationships with my students and often students who don't have a home otherwise in like other facets of the school. And for some of them who quite literally like don't have a home, like they're living in shelters or whatever the case may be, like that classroom space, that reading, the bookshelf, the reading nook, the after school game, anime gaming club, like that was their safe space. And so it holds a very special place in my heart. And so it really bothers me when people get online acting a fool instead of just like enjoying the media and taking it for what it is and respecting people's opinions.
Yes. And it's so, I love the person that you are and you're talking about these students, because I feel like growing back, like I think of me, I've also been like a bookworm and stuff. I go through phases where like right now I'm just on, all I read is manga, but I go through phases where I read books. And I think about a particular memory when I was in third grade, we had reading time and I was just reading like whatever. Do you remember that series that was like, my teacher's a vampire? It was like this, and everything. It's like Mr. Jones is a zombie. I used to read those books because they were just quick and easy. And one of my teachers was like, stop reading this, and gave me Harry Potter. And I'm somebody that, you know, fuck J.K. Rowling for life, but Harry Potter itself, like that introduction to the world changed my life. And it was just because one teacher literally was like, I think you would be more challenged if you read this. And it's like, that started my like nerd journey and stuff. So thinking about consciously creating those spaces, and even for anybody's listening who's not a teacher, but if you're a parent or you're an uncle or you're an aunt and like you're like, how do I get, you know, I see this child in my life, how do I get them interested? This is kind of where it starts, because they're also, you know, we had to watch these on anime, but now like you, like your mom loves anime and you have that connection with her. And like, how dope is it that somebody in your life can be like, this is the person who introduced me to this medium and now all this is possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Heartwarming. I love it.
Now, I had a student, a nonverbal student. Like I had a nonverbal student. I never heard her voice ever. And the student's like, she's never gonna talk to you, Miss Benson. Like, give it up, hang it up, delicious. But she used to doodle. She used to doodle anime characters, and I was like, oh, you like anime? So even though she was nonverbal, like literally, she was mute. I would still talk to her every day. I used to play like a lot of like lo-fi anime openings and stuff and Disney Channel music. And I used to sing to her and stuff. And she was struggling with her other teachers in other classes to the point where we had to get her parent and her grandmother involved, and they wanted to take her out of the school. And when I was in that conference with her parents and I was telling them like, no, I know she loves cats and I know she loves this, like you could see the look of pure shock on her face. I'm like, how do you know that? I'm like, she doesn't have to speak to me for me to pick up on that. Like, this is a mutual bond that we have. This is a mutual interest that we have. Like, I can relate to her in that way. And they ended up not taking her off the school off like the strength of that alone. But like, it just holds such a special place. Like, that's really like how I built so many relationships with my babies. And they're still my babies to this day. Like, when I say they text me all the time, you know, they ask about Pikachu, my little dog. The parents will call me and be like, listen. Yeah, her name is Pikachu.
I love that. Oh my God. Love that.
Yeah, my little king. But you know, they'll ask about her, they'll ask about Boss Man. The parents will call me and they'll be like, listen, so-and-so's acting up. You better come get them before I do. And I'll take him out to lunch. And this is years ago. I haven't, you know, taught them in 6-7 years at this point. But like, those are still my babies. And those bonds are forever off of such a like seemingly small mutual interest.
Yes. And my sister's a teacher. So recently her first class that she ever taught graduated high school, and they like came back. And it's like, I completely understand. That's not my life, but though I can name almost every single influencer teacher in my life. And it's like, sometimes just being that person and picking up on those things. Like, you know, I think about certain people that I've interviewed and it's like, you know what, you've been drawing or whatever. And it's like, so-and-so noticed, and like you culture that and you like work on that and you nurture it in such a way. And it's like, whenever that student who was nonverbal, like you're always going to have a special place because you're the one who looked and be like, I noticed that you did this. And kids, I feel like that's the one disservice that we do in the world is like underestimate children or just like not factor them at all. And it's like,
oh yeah,
it's such a disservice because I feel like when I was younger, like and I think anime is a big part of this, where I've never lost the sense of who I was as a child because I'm still that person. And like, I can still channel into how I felt when I was younger, but some people just get old and completely forget about these kids. And it's like, how? It's just,
no, I'm a big kid.
I mean, and there's like, again, like this is why I love these conversations. I love that representation, because it's like we're multifaceted people, and you can coexist and love anime and love teaching and do all that. And the final, not like the final main question that I wanted to ask you in doing, because I'm not familiar with a PhD, I think about the PhD. So what does that specifically entail? Because your focus of STEM and your focus of specifically representation, how do you present that? Like, are you writing a paper? Are you doing research? How is this all coming together as someone who's not really familiar with PhDs?
Your PhD programs are typically 3 to 5 years on average. Sometimes it takes longer. 3 is on a really, really short end. I would say you should expect like a solid 4 or 5 years at minimum. And it entails coursework, of course. And then typically like that last year or two, you're writing your dissertation. And when you are writing your dissertation, when you've completed your coursework, you've got your credits basically for that degree. Now you just have to defend your dissertation or essentially present your research. You become a PhD candidate versus just like a student in the program. And then you have to defend your dissertation before your committee. So your committee, you create your committee, and these are people who have a background in like your area of focus. It could be like your advisor. I do have an advisor. I'm a graduate assistant. I'm a research assistant. So I have like funding. I have a research assistantship, and my advisor's research is cool. Typically, you want to find someone like who's doing research that you're interested in. That was really hard for me because my interest is just like so unique. So what I'll probably end up having to do is like outsource members for my committee. But essentially what I'm hoping to do with my research, you have to conduct some type of experiment, right? You have to do like qualitative and or quantitative research. So what I'm hoping to do is to get like a control group and an experimental group, and they would be probably what I'm thinking in my head, envisioning in my head, and I have to figure it out because of timing, probably like 7th or 8th grade middle school girls, and having maybe like 2 classroom teachers, and one class, the girls in that class are exposed to the women in media in STEM. The other class is not. And to see if those women who had that very implicit and intentional exposure go down a path where they want to major in STEM in college. And so that's kind of like the idea I have for my research. And so, of course, like I would have to go through the process of getting that approved because you'd be working with minors, figuring out like what type of test I want to run. And that starts getting into stats, which I hate, by the way. You start having to figure out if you want to do like a T-test or that sort of thing. But that's what I'm hoping to do with the research. And then what I also am working on, it's so funny because I have my little vision journal here, my little Sailor Moon vision journal. And literally, I just thought of this idea yesterday. And I was like, I want to develop a curriculum for like an after school anime STEM club. What I'm currently thinking is like the first semester. Have you seen Dr. Stone?
No, but I'm familiar. Yeah, I'm familiar.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Really, it's so different than anything else like I've watched. But I'm thinking of like in that after school STEM club, they would watch Dr. Stone, but actually like do some of those scientific experiments that go on in the show. And then for the second semester, they would explore like a video game and get into like the coding aspect of video games. So like STEM through like video games and like anime. So I want to develop that curriculum. And if there's a way for me to tie that in with my research, I would hope to do so. We'll have to see. I'm trying to get up out of this program as quick as possible though. Like I want 4 years. I mapped it out. I mapped out my coursework. So like all of my electives and stuff are in like women in media and the psychology of like media and that sort of thing. And so I'm trying to tie in as many electives as I can into my research interests. But we'll see how that goes. But yeah, basically it's coursework. Then you go through your writing phase. You're writing your dissertation. Then you have to defend your dissertation. If your committee approves and they feel like you know your subject like in and out, then you can get your degree.
But I just love that. So are you supposed to start conducting your research while you're taking the classes?
You can start that ahead of time. And for something like what I want to do, which would be like a multi-year project, I would need to go ahead and start aligning that ahead of time. It's like even with Anime NYC, I think like for part of my dissertation, because your dissertation is basically like writing a book, really. It's really, really long, it's extensive paper. I want to get into like the backgrounds of like what anime means to people so that there's like a grounding and foundation and like how influential that media can be for people. And so that's how like I got in with like, professional badges and stuff from like the academia standpoint. But my papers and stuff thus far this semester, I'm taking 3 classes. have all been rooted in that. It's like for one class, we had to do a TED talk, and I talked about the underrepresentation of women in STEM. And I talked about, my entryway and that sort of thing. We have to do like a lit review. So I'm going to focus on women in media. I just submitted a 10-page paper last week that I did in like one day. Don't recommend. And it was about girls in STEM and seeing themselves in media. So I've been trying to tie in as much as my research into like every class assignment as I can, so that when I get into like year 3 or 4 and I'm just writing my dissertation, like I already have like a bulk of it done.
That is so, oh my God, this is like so exciting. But then I think about like writing this is like, I would just literally be like, can I take a test? Thanks. Bye. Because the fact of like,
no, I enjoy the writing.
See, and then maybe that's because I love writing too, but then maybe it's just because I haven't written anything school wise that it's like I love, but it's just that entire process just seems so exciting because you're literally like doing your passions and putting all that together. And it's like, yes. I cannot wait to see that. But actually I lied with the final thing because you reminded me, I don't really like do like notes when I do interviews just because I'm very like go with the flow. Things happen naturally. But you reminded me of something that I did want to talk about.
You're natural anyway.
Thanks. I try. I love storytelling. That's like my passion. Like I love storytelling and I think every piece is so important. But you bringing up Anime NYC reminded me that you are working with DreamCon. And I wanted to talk about that because I wanted specifically to ask what your role is that you're doing. And then like, what does that consist of? Because I saw some of it on Twitter and I was like, let me just make a note to ask you.
Yeah. So DreamCon, it's such like a random fluke. I have never been to DreamCon before because like I said, I used to work in teacher preparation and we would train our new teachers during the summer. Like they would do summer school. We would live in Atlanta. So that was always during like con time, right? So I've never been to DreamCon, but obviously I know about RDC and just everything that they do. And again, I'm really big on that representation piece. And I think that they were very, very influential in like really putting the people of color, the Black anime community at the forefront. And I feel like they were an entryway for a lot of creators to like start putting their content out. So I'm really, really in love with the work that they do, their skits, and just like putting our faces, people that look like us in this space, right? So always wanted to go, could not go. Saw like a random tweet, I think that they were hiring for people. Mind you, I told you how I am. Like I have to observe, I have to sit back. I feel like even now I'm not super active in the anime community. Like I do what I do, but like I mind my business over here, right? And so I'm like, and I've said this before, but I feel like the community can be very cliquish. And just not to like go on like a side rant, but I feel like as people of color, there are so few of us in the community that some of us feel like basically there isn't enough space for all of us. Like as is within the anime community, when you take everyone into account, like the white creators and stuff, there's room for all of them. They can each have their 1 million, 5 million followers and like no one cares. Like there's going to be a target audience for them. But I feel like, I guess maybe for us, some of us, I don't hold the same sentiment, but some of us feel like it's a very small core of people. So like you're basically forced to compete with others to capture their attention, not realizing like, no, people can like multiple people at once. Like it's okay, right? And so in that, I've noticed that the community is very cliquish. And at this point, like I'm pushing 30, like I'm too grown for that. Like we're not doing clicks. I mean, I do have my favorites. There are people like, I was like, oh, I like Lisa. Like, okay.
I like you.
I was like, that's going to be my new friend. I was like, that's gonna be my new friend. But like, I'm very, very hesitant on things like that. Like, I'm gonna chill. I'm gonna peep you out first. And so, but I noticed the community is very cliquish. So when I say that to say, when I applied, I was just like, they probably already know who they want, like that sort of thing. But I actually have experience. Like, I plan conferences, I plan events. Like, I actually have the skill set professionally to do this job. And I think I had told them I would do logistics or marketing. Because again, my background, I have like actual educational background in marketing, communication studies, that sort of thing. And so I ended up hearing back about an interview and I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. And then even like during the interview, like the language that was used was almost like basically like, yeah, you're on, we're just going to figure out what specific role. And I was like, am I hearing this right? And so then once things were ironed out, I was added into the group, the administrative group. And so I'm the marketing director. And so I have a team, I have a staff member and I have an assistant director, and we're moving forward to shifting everything to me. But like anytime you see like the DreamCon tweet or anything like that, that's coming from me. And like long term, I really want to stay like in this anime community, like full-time role. Like I would like to shift into maybe doing like DEI work for like an anime company or like a production company or even gaming or something. Like that's work that's really important to me. Community building, culture building is my jam. And so I'm hoping like to kind of stay. I like I said, I love the idea of DreamCon, love what the boys do. And so kind of stay with that on the side for sure, but kind of get my foot in the door to do that type of thing full time, long term.
I love it. And I too have not been to DreamCon. I kind of like, and I follow them and I've loved them. And one of the biggest thing about them is like the fact that it's like every single body in the group is like there. And it's just so, I'm just like, I feel like I know them. I'm like, I'm so proud of them. Like, I'm like, I love you guys. But like last year I like heard about it when it was happening and I was like, it's too late. I would have applied and I would have gone. But then I also am very like friendly, but then I get like shy about meeting people and then people were meeting up and I'm like, I'm that person at the party. I'm like, I'm introverted. So although people think people don't know what those words means, but I'm very introverted. So like when I'm like literally, you know, that meme where the guy's at the corner, he's like, they don't know that I know Attack on Titan. That's me as a person. So I'm like kind of grateful. And that's I'm like having anxiety about anime and YC now. But I heard about it too late. So this year I like applied for press and stuff, but I just love that. So when I saw that you were on board, I was like, yes, I don't know what this means, but I'm proud of you. I love it. And I'm so excited that you have that opportunity. And I think again, why these conversations are so important because some of the like anime industry is not new, but there's still, because it's been now coming more mainstream, there's so many opportunities that we don't know about. There's so many positions yet to be made that it's like the ideas are endless. And I love what you mentioned about people, because people do this. I think Black and POC do this no matter what it is, where we've been conditioned to believe that we've had to fight for positions because, you know, colonizers. So that conditioning makes us feel like that applies to every space. And I'm somebody who I am very embracing of everybody. You know, I created that Discord because I'm like, I'm not competing with y'all. Like nobody's my competition except me in the mirror, because I want to see us all winning. And I feel like that's what helps you. And it's sad, kind of goes back to like our first thing in the conversation. It's like when you start seeing other people as competition, I feel like it's not a good look. I feel like it just doesn't go right for you because you're closing yourself off to so many opportunities.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. But I've never been competitive ever. Like even like I used to like cheerlead and stuff like that. I can't remember a time in my life where I've enjoyed competition. Like if I'm playing Uno or something, it's not serious to me. I don't care. I don't know how to play spades, and that's because they be taking that too seriously. So
I'm not. It's too late for me to
unless you're gonna talk to me nice, and teach me. If you're not, listen, because they be taking that seriously when they lose. But I'm just not a competitive person. I just like and I know it sounds so cliche and it sounds like a broken record at this point, but I really do feel like there's space for everybody. And especially for us, like as people of color, like we're just getting our moment of shine in this industry. Like, I'm like, no, the more the merrier. Like, let's show them like all the different facets that we can touch on in the different subjects and our different viewpoints. Like we can show them this. But yeah, a lot of people do feel that way.
And
it's sad.
It's sad. And I also feel like this is why I'm like always willing to like, because I feel like you get in that mindset, right? That like everybody is your competition and then you don't like help each other out. And two of my like core beliefs is like a candle doesn't lose its light by lighting another candle. The people on this podcast probably tired of hearing that, but I believe it's true because what's me helping you do a TikTok or you teaching me something about STEM, that don't take away what you doing because I'm not going to do it the same way that you do. And I feel like when you like hold in, and I think what I'm loving right now is like this new wave of people that are coming, and some of like the voice actors, like what's his name, Zeno and Anaides, like they're so helpful to each other. And the VA community is always like, yo, let me DM you, whatever, I'm gonna send you this. And it's like, that's that type of stuff, because Zeno's voice isn't the same as Mark Allen Jr.'s voice and this other guy's voice, like AJ's voice, everybody's voice is for something. And it's like, that's what we need to pass along, because it doesn't matter. You showing me how to do a TikTok, I'm not going to beat you tomorrow. Like,
Right.
And
Right.
and it's so sad, but it's like people, I get it, because some people have had to fight so long for themselves that they feel like they can't help another person. I figured it out. I knew how to, nobody told me. And it's like, why do you want to see the next person struggle? Like, wouldn't you want to just all help?
People, we had to get, but I would, like I said, I would hire staff to train our new teachers and like mentor them and stuff. And over the years, the program would change. So like when I went through the program, we were like up writing 20-page lesson plans for each like lesson, right? When I got into the full-time position, we made it easier for the new teachers where like we were providing them the lesson plans. It's like now you don't have to be up all night writing the lesson plan and printing and then turn around and teaching at 6 o'clock in the morning. Like we got you. And the staff who went through the program like I did, they were like, we used to have to do this. Like you're making it too easy for them. And it's like, what is with this bootstrap mentality? Like, why would you continue to want to see this wheel turn and turn and turn where we're at now, where it's like, no, we can make it easier. We know better. So we're doing better. So many people hold that. Like I've experienced that in different professions, different things. Like, I don't know what that's about.
I literally feel the same way. Like, and I've witnessed that in like other professions. My job right now, we have like new training classes and they've made improvements to the training because of other classes. And then some people are like, well, we didn't have that. And it's like, yeah, but because you didn't have it, you said it. And now the other people do. Like, we gonna be the same. No, I completely agree. And I just think like, this is why my podcast is important to me, because hearing these conversations, and I get it. If you're somebody, maybe now you were that person that you thought like you don't want to collaborate with others, or you feel like you have to be individual. Now you hear this, maybe that changes your perspective. And you're like, you know what? Maybe it is better if, who I love for this, Issa Rae. When Issa Rae has this interview, she's like, why am I going to shoot up when I could look around and pull the people who are around me and we all come up together?
Yes. I love that about her.
Me too. She's like my idol. Like I need to catch up on Insecure, but she is everything. But as we're wrapping up, because I literally could talk to you for 5 hours, I always want to know, what are you currently watching right now? Whether it's fall, are you binging anything? What's on your watch list right now?
So I told you I'm catching up on Attack on Titan, the season 4, part 1.
Prayers.
I need to get that. Listen, I don't know how I'm gonna get back into that now that I didn't see this death. What? I cannot. What else am I currently watching? I like so much. I'm always rewatching Fire Force. That's like one of my favorite animes. I just finished a rewatch of Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. That's my number one all-time favorite anime. Platinum End started. So I did start Platinum End. And so that's like the newer anime that I'm watching currently. It's so much I be watching. And I'm subscribed to like everything. Like when I say I have everything, like I be on Hulu, Netflix, Funimation, Crunchy, like I have it all. They get all my money.
For reals. I feel the same way. Fire Force, I need to finish season 2. I really enjoyed Fire Force. I just be getting in moods where like, you know what, let me just watch anime about sports. I'm in a sports otaku right now. I see you're wearing wearing your, I'm pretty sure that's a Haikyuu shirt. I have the same one in black that I was wearing yesterday. So me and you, we here. Yes, I've been in my sports otaku bag. I'm actually filming a video after this on Run with the Wind because I'm obsessed. Do you have any 2022 anime that's on your list aside from Attack on Titan at the end, which it might be a while for you because you're really emotional right now, as am I.
So there was this anime that came out, I guess like fall, winter 2021. So it was January. I guess fall is considered like November-ish, but it came out in January. Kimono Jihen. And I absolutely loved it. I don't know when that next season, let me look this up. I don't know if they're going to do another season, but it came out when like Promised Neverland season 2 was out and Attack on Titan, like it came out, Jobless Reincarnation, like everything was out at this time. And so it really got swept under the rug. And I'm like, dang, it really needed some shine. Like this one is good. So I hope that comes out by then. Otherwise, my boyfriend hears stuff. He wants to watch it. Like I'd be down for whatever. We just watch whatever. I read whatever. I'll just go on, log into my little Viz app, and I'll just like, oh, okay, I'll read this. Why not? Sometimes I'll continue. Sometimes like I was trying to read, what is it? A Reaper Girl or some Ghost Reaper Girl. I couldn't get past the first chapter because they kept emphasizing how young she looked. And like the men were in love with how young she looked. And I'm like, okay, fine. Like I got that. I understand that this is part of the character. Why we keep talking about it? Like,
girl,
stop being weird about it.
That's how I feel. And I know, what is it? My senpai is annoying. That I'm like, I just feel like I get it. She's short and she is an adult, but I feel like she looks way too young for me. I cannot.
They be playing games with that. Because listen, even if, because again, there are women who are very petite, that's fine. I know some, I have friends who are some, but they are very clearly much so like they're adults. Like the way they portray themselves, they are adults. I don't like when it teeter-totters into that territory where it's like, okay, she's going to be small and petite, she's going to be short, whatever. But then like we're treating her like she's a child. Like that's where it's like, okay, you guys are doing a lot right now. Let's relax.
Yes. And you know what this happened? I was just telling my friend about this last night. Have you seen Honey and Clover?
Mm-mm.
So it's like this classic slice of life from like the early 2010s or whatever. And it's absolutely, when I tell you I love that anime, stop. It has like 2 seasons. It's basically about a bunch of college kids who like don't know what the hell they're doing with their life. And I love anything college, adult, like that's my jam. So then I was like, let me read the manga. And in the anime, there's this one character. She's 18. She's a college student. She looks young, but she's not drawn that. Like she clearly looks younger than everybody, and everybody treats her special, but they don't treat her like a child. But then I like last year, I was like, let me read the manga because I love the manga. I'm just such a manga person. I was like, literally, I had gone to the library. I borrowed all of them, started the first, I went the next day, immediately returned it. I was like, she looks way too, like the anime did them a favor by aging her up a little bit. The anime, and it was just, it's weird because it's not very romantic, but there are like 3 different characters who have a crush on her, and they're like, they all look their age. So I'm like, why she gotta look 5? No. I just can't.
Right.
I feel like some stuff is pushing it. So I'm glad I'm not the only one that feels that way. But I feel like this next, it's going to be a lot of stuff coming up, but I just need to, I'm right now watching Haikyuu. I need to, but I'm taking my time with Haikyuu because I love it. Like every episode is so enjoyable. Like I just feels like a hug that I'm like, I'm not in a rush. Run with the Wind.
No, we're behind on it as well. We're behind, but that's because like, this is like the only anime, and you know this now. I grew up watching anime. I've always watched anime. There weren't really any breaks in that. And that is the first anime ever where it's like, I'm sitting with a bottle of wine and I'm just on edge. Like, I'm like, this is not even that serious, but I'd be like, oh my God, what's about to happen? So we had to take a little break, but, and then let it, stack up so we could just binge it. But we absolutely love it.
It's so,
but it's hard for me to watch new things because, okay, so I don't know. See, I'm telling on myself. I write fan fiction, right? And so sometimes I have to go back and rewatch so that I can get like inspired or like certain character attributes down. And so sometimes it's hard for me to introduce new anime into my watch list.
See, this is the first time in my life where I rewatch anime because one of my problems, and it's crazy because I could read manga a million times, but anime specifically, I have a really good memory. So then it's hard for me to like rewatch stuff. But I've started because Full Metal Alchemist, that rewatch is happening. It's gonna happen soon. But like, I like, how people have like comfort anime. Like I think I'm getting there. And that is good. I am obsessed with Given. Like that's my life right now. And then I always go back and watch the one concert scene. And then I ended up finishing the whole season. And I was like, am I that girl now? Is this me?
You are that girl now.
Yuri on Ice. Like, I just think, because the one thing I will say, like Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, and I do this every month. I'm probably gonna do it now. Every time I think about it, I have to go do it. I rewatched the like last fight scene, and I'm not even do a spoiler because it's been 10 years, and I get so emotional. The chills are coming on when they are at the final battle, and
Mhm.
Al realizes that in order for Ed to win, he has to sacrifice. I start right at that point when his wheels start turning, and then I end up and then I watch the end. I do this every month. Netflix is tired of my ass. They like, girl, you're gonna continue it from this episode. But it's like that's like something that I'm getting to that level where certain things I'm like, now I want to rewatch. But I've never been like that. Like it's brand new for me. It's new territory.
Do you watch My Hero?
I do. I need to finish season 5. That's one where I always binge it like on a weekend because I saw the first. I think I started.
That's how we are.
I started watching it when the 4th season was about to come out, so I binged the first 3 seasons, and then after that, like 4th season, I would let like the first core everything. Then I binged it. Then I do it. But I fell off with this season. But I need to get back because I love them.
So there's this episode because I write for the My Hero fandom. I write for Todoroki and Yaoyorozu. And there's the episode where they're doing the final exam and they're teamed up together or whatever. The episode's called Yaoyorozu Rising. And literally I joke all the time. I'm like, Pikachu could probably recite this word for word. Because when I say it's like my comfort episode, that is my comfort episode. Like I love that episode. I actually have typically when I purchase manga, I try to wait for box sets. Mm-hmm. So, but what I do is in between, I'll purchase covers that I love from like my favorite characters. So like I have that manga issue where that episode is from. Like I absolutely love that episode. But like and this is so weird, but like Fire Force is my comfort anime. And it's because I just identify with Princess Savannah so much. And now she is someone I have gotten into like Discord arguments about her. Like I will argue about her. Because, they'll say like, she came on like so hardcore and then like she ended up being like a simp for Shinra. And I'm like, and it's because I get like, I'm projecting because I can see myself in that. I'm like, no, that's how I am. I have a very rough exterior, but listen, you get the right one. I'm a lover girl, but that doesn't take away from any of her capabilities. That doesn't take away from her intellect. Like, I don't understand why you guys see this moment and you isolate like, oh, now she's in love. So now she's weak. Like that really pisses me off. But Fire Force is like my comfort anime just because off the strength of her alone, like this is the first anime character ever where I'm like, oh, yo, that's me. Like that's literally me. But yeah.
I feel you. I'm the same. I love her. I need to, again, continue watching, but I felt that way with Lovely Complex, which is so old. Mm-hmm. I finally saw that. I just had like, especially in high school, I was so in my Clamp phase that's literally all that I consumed. But Lovely Complex, there's this one character. Have you seen it? It's just so...
No.
It's this tall girl. She's with this short guy. Her name is Risa. And she is like so boy crazy in high school that literally I was watching this and I was like, I would be this person. Like she's obsessed with love.
She's so cute.
She's so cute. And then she struggles because the guy and it's so funny because they weren't even initially like in the beginning of the show and then the manga, it's like they kind of were like enemies and then she starts falling for him first and then he like likes her but he's short so he's dealing with the complex of being shorter than her and it was just like, but when I'm telling you that I saw that and I was like, this is who I am as a person. Like this is literally me. Like luckily I'm not obviously married now. I'm not that boy crazy, but in high school, like had I seen that in high school, that would have probably motivated me to do even more dumb shit because she was like, let me just confess my feelings 10 times. And I was like, and then he would like look at her. She'd be like, I'm not going to give up hope. And it's like, girl, give up. But that was me.
I love that. Okay, now I'm going to have to check this out. First of all, I'm already biased because she's a Leo. It's like a fun fact about me. I love like astrology, especially in anime. So the first thing I'd be like when I'm watching the show, I'm like, oh, they must be a so-and-so. They must be a so-and-so. That probably sounds crazy, but let me tell you, really before we wrap up, and we've been saying that for like 30 minutes now. I hope I'm not holding you up. But listen, I got a birth chart reading, like a natal chart reading from an astrologer. I think they go by astrologer. And when I say this woman knew my life, mind you, I just booked her on her website. So it's not like I knew her from social media or anything like that, where she could like stalk me and get to know me. When I say she knew my life, like down to the fact that I work like in education and stuff, I'm really passionate about kids. She knew my life. And I sent the link to my mother. And my mother was reading it and she was like, Nana, this is you. She's like, I want one done. Like if nothing else like that, it made me a believer. But yeah, the first thing I be doing when I'm watching anime and stuff like, what's their sign? What are they like?
No.
But I'm gonna have to check out Lovely Complex.
I'm also into astrology. I'm not like, astrology Twitter be crazy. I'm not into that. But
yes.
As an Aquarius, I literally, and I'm very like sus with certain astrology stuff because I can tell when it's bullshit because they'd be like, this would have, and I'm like, girl, we do not do that. Stop.
Right.
But the one thing, I used to write listicles for CBR and it'd just be like 10 anime characters that are Leos, 10 anime characters. And I like, so, and that's the one thing I love about anime and manga is like, any manga that you purchase, it'd be like fucking what the most action. Then in the splash pages, it'd be like, here's their birthday, here's their sign, here's their blood type. And it's like, those are important factors. So I know we're not wrong, like literally, but I identify like, sometimes when I'm like seeing a character and it's like, this is like, for some reason, Clamp specifically, a lot of their characters are Aries and it just makes sense. I'm like, these are factors that are considered and we know they matter in the anime because they put it in the splash page. If it wasn't important, it wouldn't be there. But before I let you go, I did the scene that you're talking about in My Hero is when they're like Todoroki's like, you got this, like he's like encouraging. Yeah.
Yes, it's because he takes over and he tries to dominate. He basically comes up with a plan and he peeps that like she's hesitant. And what I love about that is we know Todoroki's background and like how he was raised. He's not well socialized, but for him to peep game and be like, yo, I made a mistake here. She has something she wants to say. And to realize that he set up this precedence where sure, she already had her insecurities, but it didn't help that he kind of took lead there. For him to make that space and like kind of correct himself in the moment and then encourage her and be like, yo, like I've been believed in you. I voted for you for class president. Like it's real, okay? One of those votes were mine. I'm just like, Hori be putting a little Tonomomo breadcrumbs in.
Yes,
okay?
And listen. I don't care. I know people like there's no ships in My Hero. I'm gonna have my ships, okay? Because I'm gonna have them. There's no, especially like in season 5, when they were doing the test and then it flashed back to that I'm like, he's thinking about her. He's thinking about that moment. It was a special moment in their life.
Listen. Hori had them in matching turtlenecks during like a Christmas scene in the manga. Okay. The anime be flashing to Todoroki just looking at her during class sometimes. I'm like, we're seeing what we're seeing. Hori is not low with it. No, he knows.
No. And I'm somebody, this is a big problem with me getting into anime. It's terrible. I need a love. I need somebody to ship. Usually there's some exceptions to that. Like Haikyuu, I know people ship people. I don't have a problem with that. I'm shipping myself with the coach. That's my ship. So that is driving me the show.
Yeah.
But like every show, I don't care if it's like the saddest show ever. I'm like, who am I ship? I need somebody to root for because it's just my character. There's no love in this. I'm like,
love and companionship is so important. It's literally human nature. That's why even in these like post-apocalyptic like societies and like the zombies are attacking, you will watch those shows and it's always some type of love connection. They're always going to get down and have sex. Like, and I'm like, this is going on and we're still focused on that as humans. Like, that's just our nature. Like, I need the ship. Okay.
Listen, and that I'm not going to lie, like Run with the Wind. I'm going to discuss this in my video. I was like, I saw this clip on Twitter and I've been in my yaoi bag, as you know. And it was like, the clip was this clip on Twitter from a scene and they were like, is this yaoi? And people are like, no, but kind of, and not confirmed.
Yeah, it's there.
And it's one of those, because a reason that I really stayed away from yaoi for a long time is because now I'm telling on myself. When I was in high school, Tumblr was the deal. I ran like 4 Clamp Tumblr blogs, Clamp Confessions, girl. People would submit their confessions. I was putting them in Photoshop and post. I was on there.
Oh my God, I love that.
And there was a ship in Clamp and XXX Holic, which is 2 friends, and people would ship them romantically. And for me, I didn't like that. And then, girl, I was dragged. They told me I was homophobic and everything. I was like, no. I'm like this. And even to this day, as much as I love yaoi, I don't ship them because I do think there's valid male friendships or women friendships that are not like relationship. I 100% believe that. But in Run with the Wind, I specifically know that at the end, it transcends that and there's written proof. And that's one thing that I'm like, because I'm like, if this not there and you're just shipping for fun, like I think that's okay too. But when people like, this is canon and I'm I'm gonna fight somebody. Nobody's arguing this. Literally nobody online but I'm ready. Like I got the dissertation. And that's how I feel with like Haikyuu too. Like people like do the ships. I'm like, all right, there's nobody, at least yet, except me and the coach. We canon is a wrap. I'm just gonna be with that man because
right.
But I'm glad somebody sees that too, because I love the shipping aspect, especially with My Hero. There's some ships I see online and I was like, I didn't see that, but now I'm seeing it.
No, My Hero's like notorious for that, especially some fan art. I'm gonna have to send you some of the fan art that had me like, oh, like I'm poured into this. Like when I say I got into writing for that fandom like 2 years ago or so, I think October, maybe like 2 years, 2019, right? And when I say I was so invested, I dished out so many one shots where my series is like over 100,000 words. And that was from like October to January 2020. Like I was in it. Like I would be going to sleep at night and have an idea and just get up and type. Like Boston would be like, okay, babe, I'm going to work. Love you. Have fun writing your fic. Cause like he knew like I was so poured into it. But they're a little crazy over there with their shipping. And to your point, and I feel so seen when you say this because people don't see it that way. I think a lot of times when people like overtly and go out of their way to ship these male friendship characters together, I think that it takes away from the potential that males could have as friends in real life. Because we know sometimes, a lot of times, male friendships are very surface level.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because if they have that deeper connection, it's seen as something more. And so it does bother me, like when people go out of their way. And again, I don't know, homophobic stuff. Like if it's there, fine, cool, dandy, like duh. But when they go out of their way to take something that's like really a friendship and it has to be something more. And I'm like, no, that's why men don't be like vibing and jiving the way they should, because they get feeling like it's weird. And it's like, no, it's not. Like, you guys should love each other the way, you know, we women, we love each other and our friends.
Listen, and I wrote a blog post about this, but I do want to dive deeper. Like I have a series planned, kind of diving deeper into that, because it's exactly what you said. It takes away from that. And this, like, there, aside from fun, like I ship whoever, fun, you know, consensual, whatever.
Right.
But like, there is that part where like, you're like fighting and making stuff up. And it's like, no, girl, like you can't force it, especially to somebody now that's in that boys love genre. Like there's so much canon boys love.
Right.
And I love those relationships because I also think that shows a different side of men. And it's like, I just think like that's the one dangerous thing, that everything is always on a fine line. And I feel like when you are getting into that territory where you are like forcing it, then I feel like it becomes fetishizing. And I think that is a big problem that people,
and you have to be careful. Yep.
Like you can appreciate, and I'm somebody, I love love. So I love yaoi, yuri, any type of love, should regular hetero boring people love. But I'm not going to sit here and fetishize a community because Deku and Bakugo have that dynamic. Like there's so many true like that head-butting rivalry. There's so many true real ships with that it's like, why make this just to fit your fetishizing narrative?
Yes.
That's gonna be
we be here.
But for real, we're gonna wrap this up. AK, we're just gonna stop recording because we got other stuff to talk about. But so you have the series on TikTok. What else should the audience be looking forward to? Do you have anything else coming up that you're working on? You know, how long do you have a number with this series is gonna go? Is it just on forever? What should we be in tune to?
You sound just like Boss Man. We have like a chalkboard wall and he be trying to write down like my goals and stuff.
Love it.
The biggest thing is like, I want to continue with this series. And like I said, I have an Excel sheet, so I don't have like a set number. I do think it would be dope if I could at least hit 100, like 100 minimum, which means it's going to take me like really connecting with people, exploring, seeing what they're reading, what they're watching. So I'll definitely have to branch out into like different genres and just things maybe I never heard about before. So that's like a big goal of mine. And then I kind of briefly mentioned earlier, like I want to develop an after school anime like STEM club. So I want to start working on that curriculum. And we have like some gaming companies out here in North Carolina. We have like Insomniac Games. We have Epic Games out here. And so we actually just had a conference for our students, a cybersecurity conference. And we had like speakers from some of those companies. And so I really want to like get my foot in the door with one of those companies and see if they can like fund some technology and that sort of thing, some laptops and games for that club. And maybe we could pilot it at a school here and then maybe kind of branch out to other cities and maybe even other states. So that's something, like I said, that idea just popped in my head the other day. So now I got to like work through it and kind of figure out logistics. But my manager is super supportive of like everything. Even with grad school, I'd be tying in like our work into school because I really am busy. I have a lot going on, but it's really seamless because I'm passionate about it and I have the support of my manager. So I'm going to see if she has like any of ideas of like how I can execute that. But that's it for me.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on my podcast, which was really just us having out and having fun.
Thank you for having me.
You have been listening to the Wonder of Anime podcast, hosted and produced by me, Lisa Della Cruz. This episode was mixed and engineered by Jared Brown at Music is Passion Studios. His links, the links to the guest, and any other topics that we talk about are available in the description box of this episode. If you've enjoyed listening, please be sure to share on social media using the hashtag TWOAPod and at The Wonder of Ivy. Thank you so much for listening.